I don't know why they decided to call this Kamen Rider SD. All Famicom games are in standard definition. It feels like we've had one of these cutie versions of a Bandai property every other day lately, and we're actually not quite done with them yet. This time it's the Kamen Rider franchise's turn. Kamen Rider is a superhero franchise involving a series of cybernetic motorcycle riding heroes, all of whom are Kamen Rider. These individual heroes inevitably find themselves in conflict with some evil organization who keep sending out monsters after them. Kamen Rider SD wasn't just the cutified version of Kamen Rider, it was a direct-to-video animated special that was being promoted at the time. The plot of Kamen Rider SD is that 9 of the Kamen Riders have had their arch-enemies revived, and those enemies have each taken over a section of Japan. Now, all of the Kamen Riders team up to stop them. When you start the game, you're at the base for the Kamen Rider Corps. At the base, you can check out what's happening in Japan, take a look at the stats for each of the 9 riders, and save your game to one of 3 battery save slots. Once you're ready, you choose to go out on a mission, and then you have to pick which team of 3 riders you'll be using. Each team has a different type of terrain that they specialize in, and so you'll want to select the team for the mission. After you've chosen which region of Japan you're going to, you emerge from the base there and start rolling dice to move. Now, despite appearances, this is not a Sugorok-based board game. The board game track and rolling to move is weird, but it's really more of a way to determine where you'll have random encounters. And that's because Kamen Rider SD is an RPG, and kind of a weird one. There's a lot of different spaces you can land on as you move around the board. The blank squares, which are by far the most common, are encounters with enemies. The squares that look like they're football stadiums are actually stacks of coins. The wrenches repair damage to your motorcycle, and the fuel cans give you, well, more fuel. The whirlwinds will whisk you off to different parts of the map. The tacks will pop one of your tires, disabling a rider until you reach a service station. And the arrows pointed down make you lose fuel. You can also pull off the road at a lot of points and encounter something, like shops where you'll buy items that you will absolutely have to have, ferries and airports where you can use a ticket to travel somewhere else, and sometimes you'll just find people who need help from a superhero. Every region has several mini-quests like this, and you're going to want to complete them. The way that battles are handled is first you have to choose if you're going to fight or run away, and then you get out on the road for a motorcycle race. You can choose to manually control things or have the computer automatically handle the turns for you. There's no reason to choose manual unless you're going to use items. And then on every turn, you're given 3 choices: drive, use an item, or block. If you choose to drive forward, then you move a distance determined by your motorcycle's speed stat toward the left-hand side of the screen. Items have a huge range of effects and are really the only other option you'll want to use in battle, because blocking is always a bad idea. Blocking means you try to block the motorcycle that's directly above you, so you have to be right alongside someone, and if you successfully block them, then they stay in place that turn. Also, you stay in place that turn. And for some reason, staying in place is a bad strategy in a race battle. You get experience and cash for coming in first, second, or third, and anytime an enemy finishes in one of those positions, all Kamen Riders who haven't finished the race take some damage. During regular race battles, it doesn't matter if you finish. If the enemies come in first, second, and third, then you just take the damage. But in boss fights, you have to finish first, second, and third, otherwise it's game over. Also on every fight, there are things that are randomly dropped in lanes to block your way. All you can do is collide with them and hopefully power through before someone passes you. Fuel is consumed every time you move during a fight, and anyone who's out of fuel can no longer race. If you level up from doing the races, then you get stat points that you can apply to your motorcycle, but you have to return to base first, and then go to the garage in order to upgrade. You get 1 point per level to add to your engine, your body, and your tank. All of the squares in the overworld have a different set of possible encounters, so you really have to hang out close to your headquarters for a while, grinding up a few levels, and then powering up before you try setting out. I'm a bit surprised that I couldn't find any comments from players in Japan on this one. Usually games attached to popular franchises get something, but Kamen Rider SD seems to be totally forgotten. Or maybe it was overshadowed by the Super Famicom game of the same name. It probably doesn't help that the game's a bit of a stinker. Surprisingly, not for being a bad board game. The board game elements here are kind of out of place, but it's essentially a stand-in for a regular RPG overworld. No, the real problems with Kamen Rider SD are the RPG elements. The race battles are just terrible to play. They're total snores, start to finish. And requiring that you go back to the Kamen Rider base in order to level up makes an already slow-playing game even slower. If you think about landing on those white squares as the random encounter rate, it is crazy high in this game, and since you really can't do anything in the battles except sit there and watch it, that makes the quantity of fights you have to go through even worse. There's just no fun to be had with Kamen Rider SD.